I would like to each of you, when you present your next paper, have a clear view on what is the starting point for the paper. What do they want to find out? What's the purpose of the paper? How do they state their research questions or their problem area? Okay, what's the starting point? What do they want to find out? Okay, that's the first thing. And now the second thing is, okay, so given that they want to discover something, they want to explore a certain area, what methods do they use to find out what they want to find out? Okay, and I think today, and maybe it's just my bias, but today I think was a bit better in that direction. Without comparing too much, I think more of the presentations today had this reflected view on the selection of methodology. And I think that's crucial for the next round, is that when you present the paper, you also say something about the selection of methodology. Pay attention to how the authors argue for their selection of methodology. Pay attention to whether they discuss alternative approaches that they didn't select. Okay? Because of course, the methodology is a tool which you use to get an answer to your research question. So you have a question, and now you want to find it out. So what kind of tool do you use, and why do you use that tool? Remember, Edgar talked about give a child a hammer, and every problem can be solved by using the hammer. Look at the paper. Do they actually defend their selection of method? And to this, you can also add your own experience and your own thoughts. So when you present the author's selection of methodology, feel free to comment on it at that point. So you say, they have selected this, which I think is well suited because this and that, or maybe this is a weakness of the paper, is that their selection of methodology. And we have had some interesting discussion here about the rotation, right? So, was that a suitable set of methodology? For some of the papers, the year or the age of the paper can play a certain role. Okay? To do the rotation thing again, that was a recent paper, it's a 2014 paper. So it should be state of the art. But of course, if you go back 5 years and you present the paper on rotation 5 years ago, maybe the technology plays a role. So state clearly when the paper is from. Some of you have done that. Also, you remember Ricardo has talked about different publication channels, right? So and you've also asked to select papers, and you have all done this as far as I can understand, peer-reviewed papers. But there's a difference between a peer-reviewed paper in a high-ranking conference or a lower standard conference. There's a difference between a conference paper and a journal paper. So state also where was the paper published. Okay, so because that will say something about the paper. Some of the more practical papers oriented towards some let's say the children with the letters. Right? That's maybe it is a typical conference paper. It's a very hands-on prototype that is explored and then described. And all of this tells you something about what you can what kinds of critique you can come up with. If it's a 30-page journal paper, there should be a whole lot of more theory. There should be it's more well-founded paper. Conference papers typically, something like. So you have the research question. What do they want to find out? And you have a reflective view on the methods that they selected for doing their work. And then they present their findings and they have a conclusion. Now, did they actually answer the question they set out to answer? Okay, this is not always the case. Even though the paper is peer-reviewed and is going through all the loops, it doesn't necessarily mean that the authors were very clear about the relationship between their findings and their conclusion and what they set out to find out. Okay, and some of you, I think, at least on Monday, commented on that. Okay, we're not sure. They don't really answer the question that they ask. And this is your role now: is to be that, to view this work, not only the prototype, but also the way they used the prototype or whatever they did. How did they use the case, and how did they go about working with the case, and how did they present the case? So this is your role now to be, so you have to demonstrate that you have a reflective view on all these things. This will help you on the exam, I'm sure, but it will also help you very much when you get to your master thesis. When you start working on your thesis and you start supervision in your master thesis, this will be the beginning of your work. It will be very much about defining the question, defining the methods that you will use, and have, argue carefully about each step that you take. So it's a help for further work for yourself. When you manage your time in your 7 minutes, as I said, congratulations, you have all been within the reasonable limits. Much better than many conference presentations I've seen. It's not typical that they're finishes on time. But think about what I just said about your focus. So of course you have to present the thing that they made, the prototype or the case. You have to describe that. But set aside enough time to actually criticize. And by criticize, I don't necessarily mean being negative, but to have a critical view on the work that they describe. So set aside time to actually comment on the work, not only to present their results and their findings. I think that could also lift your presentations significantly. You focus on the functionality, the technology, the future use. And this also goes, again, for the opponents. You ask questions about, okay, what if they extended it to this group, or what if they did that? Remember that the person presenting now does not defend the work. Okay? They have no reason to know what the authors intended. Okay? The only thing you can rely on is what they describe, and you can comment on that. You can't really. There's no point really. I mean, of course, for a subsequent discussion outside of this room, if it's of course interesting to discuss or be inspired by the papers. But for this context, what I want you to do is to focus on the scientific work and the way they do their work. I think those are my main comments, and they apply in different degrees to all of you. I hope you recognize that. But again, you've all done good presentations in the first round. This is an opportunity for you to up the game in the next round, and it will prepare you for the exam, which will be, you must be prepared for questions about these kinds of things. Okay, so why did they do this work? How do they argue for the existence of their work? How did they design on the methodology? What would you, how do you view the sample size, or selection of participants? Any strengths or weaknesses in the paper? You should prepare for those kinds of questions on the exam. So with that, I think those are my comments, and I'm open for questions, or if there's anything that any comments that you have. What are your impressions from the first round? Do you have any questions? No, everything is good. So we're doing a similar round Monday and Wednesday next week. Those are the two last lecture times we have. We'll need to spend, I think, a break or something next week, since we have two extra presentations, or one extra presentation, next week. Because we also need to do a final evaluation of the course. Okay, so, and I might just hand out the papers and expect you'll hand it in later. You don't have to do it fast. From experience, it's better that you complete it and then hand it in, because then I know that you're doing it. As you understand, and I think we discussed it during the midterm evaluation. This is a new course. Some things could have been different. some things have been working good, and we and I really want to have your sincere feedback on this. So yeah, that's it. So we'll do that next week. So unless you have any questions, that's it. I'll see you all on Monday. The schedule is on the week here. Okay, thanks for participating.